As I look at the work that has been done, my judgment was there had been plenty of work that had been done to justify what we were doing, and that we could proceed without a warrant. So what we were doing, virtually the same information, did support a warrant, but we didn't really need one. And boy, that's got everybody buzzing over here, doesn't it? Huh? Is that right? As we discussed with Judge Thompson yesterday, the three different ways that we have a right to be on that premises. And then I'll discuss after I tell you how we have a right to be on the premises, what we do once we're there. The first way that we have a right to be there is that we're talking about a public place. The public is invited to come to this place. The public would include law enforcement or non-law enforcement, or if you will, everybody. That is, there is no expectation of privacy in a public place. Any police officer could walk into any public place for any or no reason and have a right to be there. And that's really, I don't think, contested much. That is the thrust of the business. We have a electronic bingo place that's open to the public. I think it was open 24/7 maybe. I'm not sure about that detail, but open a lot. So we have a right to be there just because it's a public place. Second, under the statutes that enabled the development, there is a provision in there that says something to the effect that the place should be open to the sheriff or to any other law enforcement agency. And this is not an exact quote, but anytime. So by statute, the place is open to law enforcement. By statute, they have to give us access, I think, by condition of is it a permit or a license of some sort. They have agreed to that as a condition of their being able to obtain that license, and that's built into the specific law that sets this thing up. The third way that we have a right of access has to do with the Outbound Beverage Control Board rules and regulations. They are licensed to dispense alcohol. They then have agreed under those rules and regulations to be open to inspection, not just for open to inspection for alcohol purposes, but also for all lawful kinds of activities, including specifically, interestingly enough, gambling devices and so on and so forth. So from a warrant perspective, this is not something where you go knock the door down. All right. I guess we could under the right circumstances. Certainly, law enforcement does have time. From time to time have to do such thing. But what we were relying on when we were rolling the other day was law enforcement has a right to be there just as anybody else, and additional things because of those specific statutes. Now, once law enforcement is in place, if an officer sees a crime being committed in his presence, then the officer is authorized to act. And that's one of the real dangers here about what's been going on over here, and that's one of the reasons that I'm involved in this thing. And if you think about it, that'll make sense too. If, for instance, somebody out here in the parking lot decides to shoot Joe, kill him, murder him, and police officers driving by and sees that, the officer is authorized to act right then. The officer doesn't have to go see the judge, get a warrant, and do all those things. The officer has to act. It's the same thing as on the highway with the DUI. The officer's authorized to act when a crime is being committed in his presence. An officer then has to get his paperwork ready, then has to go, do all the things, then has to set up all the due process. But as I'm sure you can appreciate, when you catch a burglar in the act, you don't have time to go stop and say, well, let me go talk to the judge. What we argued in Tallapoosa County the other morning, when that judge was interrupting us, was that when you do that, judge, unfortunately, you put people at risk. That is, you've got safety issues going, and evidence, witnesses, things just disappear if you have to slow down. And so while we are urgently arguing about whether we should do country crossing or not, or what have you, we cannot throw the baby out with the wash. We cannot basically disable the law enforcement community to help protect the peace and dignity of the community. That is one of the things that most frightens me. Country crossing, and whoever tried to intervene in this case, and I want to be careful about saying that because there is no case yet, but that's part of what we were arguing in the court the other day. They were saying, wait a minute, Judge, we want to have a hearing before you issue that search warrant. Remember that? We want to have a hearing for that. And by the way, Judge, if they ever come back for another search warrant, we want to have a hearing on that first. I got to tell you, if law enforcement has to have a hearing with a crook before the warrants for search or arrest issue and are executed, three things are going to happen. All right? One, they're going to disappear. The evidence we're going to have to fight when we get there. All right? Now that's just the fundamental truth of the matter. That's not the way the criminal justice system works, and we need to be very, very careful about the impact that we're trying to have on all the rest. So you see what I mean on this search business. We have two different ways to get to it. One, you can just get a search warrant, and we tried that, and we had a judge review what we were doing, and the judge did in fact give us a review that you have probable cause. But aside from that, we've got three different ways to be present on the place, and it is basic, fundamental criminal law that when an officer sees a crime being committed in his presence, then he is authorized to act, and y'all want it to be that way. You certainly don't want to get into a situation where you have to have a hearing before a search warrant should issue. That, by the way, is the underpinning of the reasons that both the Alabama Supreme Court and then yesterday the Federal District Court issued their order saying that you can't go forward with a temporary restraining order. That's just not the way to do it.